Hello, everyone, and welcome. You have chosen the Scenic City Sports Podcast, your destination for local sports news, be it high school, be it professional, or whether you just want to listen to us ramble on about professional wrestling or old Seinfeld quotes or crazy movies that we all like. Welcome to the Scenic City Sports Podcast, brought to you by the fine folks at Gary Thacker Insurance over at 2382 Battlefield Parkway. You can reach them at 706-866-8283. Also, the Chattanooga Flower Market, 8016 East Brainerd Road, 423-899-2440. Phil's Primetime Pizza down in beautiful Chickamauga, Georgia, 122 Gordon Street. That's 706-375-4448. Our good friend Greg Payne, host of Restricted to the Dugout with Greg Payne and the Payne Mortgage Team. You can reach them at 423-645-9404 for all of your mortgage needs. And finally, Choo Choo Barbecue, who make it possible for us to bring you the scoreboard on Friday nights. The Choo Choo Barbecue of Chickamauga scoreboard. You can reach them at 12960 U.S. Highway 27 at 706-375-7675. And as Ringo Robb likes to say, you don't know Q until you know Choo Choo. We also want to say a special thank you to Matthew Mays and the good friends and members of Jupiter Coyote, one of our favorite bands, and they provide the music for the show. Those guys have always been great to us, and we hope you guys will reach out and try to check out their music as well. So sit back and relax and hold on, and we'll see where we get to. And welcome, everybody, to this pre-Christmas edition of the Scenic City Sports Podcast. Rusty, Scott, and Rob bringing it to you at an early hour of about 3 o'clock here on this Friday afternoon, December the 21st.
Good morning to all our fans in Hawaii.
Yeah, I was going to say good morning to those of you on the West Coast. And
they still got a volcano out there.
It's probably still out there smoldering.
And I don't know if you saw this, and I have to fly usually about once a year, not lately because of all the pandemic stuff, but I don't know if you saw that horrific plane situation going into Hawaii the other day with turbulence.
Oh, I heard about it.
And did you see like where people's head had broken the
I didn't know it was that bad.
Oh yeah,
wow.
About 20 people went to the hospital.
Oh God!
It showed some of them even bleeding. They got one of the women said, she says, I really didn't think we were going to make it. And I've been in some turbulence, and I don't care to be in it. But I don't know that there's been anything that bad, by no means. But, you know, with all the instruments they got on those planes and all the sophistications and the captains being so skillful, they have no clue when they're going to run into this stuff.
Weather's still undefeated, kind of like Father Time. I'll be honest, fortunately, I haven't had to deal with too much turbulence on flights. One, I can't remember where we were going or coming from, is probably more than I've ever been in, and
it's an uneasiness. I don't like it. It
is, but at the same time, and this may just be me, we were kind of like going down and then up for a few minutes, and it was kind of getting my stomach, and I'm like, oh, this is like a ride, you know.
Well, you like roller coasters, and I don't.
But then I thought, you know, after I got done, I thought, you know, that could have been a really dangerous situation.
I'll tell you right now, I was in the
I thought it was neat for a few minutes, but.
Well, I've never thought it was neat.
I got on a plane one time, and I was flying out of Moline, Illinois, coming home from Iowa. And first of all, it was
called Iowa home?
Yeah. I was coming home from Iowa. First of all, it was the most podunk airport I've ever been to in my entire life. I mean, the lady that took my ticket helped load my baggage and was the stewardess on the plane when we took off. I mean, and that I'm telling you, that is no joke. That is legit when I say that. Moline, Illinois.
Named after a guy named Earl, I'm sure.
And I will never forget when we took off. And I love to fly. Always have. But we flew right into a thunderstorm, through it, and we're on the backside of it, beating it back to the south. And it turns out when we got here, it had basically followed, more or less.
Yeah.
But we got up in the air, and the pilot come on and said, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you got your seatbelts fastened. It's going to get a little bumpy. Well, a little bumpy, is like Scott's describing, it gets your stomach here and there. I'm telling y'all, this dang thing felt like it was dropping 100 feet at a time.
Was you on a big jet?
I was on that jet would have been probably the medium size, 3 per row on either side, so 6 all the way across.
Yeah,
it was probably 727 maybe. I mean, it was a big, still a pretty good sized plane, but it was making drops that, and I, like I said, I mean, I've flown a million times. I looked over at the buddy of mine that was with me that we had come back, and he looked over at me and he said, "Listen, man, I ain't afraid to admit it all." He goes, "This is scaring the piss out of me." And I was like, "Buddy, me too. You don't feel bad one iota."
Yeah. Well, and because those guys, the crew and all the above, and in this trip to Hawaii, three of the crew got hurt themselves because they weren't situated when it started.
That's something about a hydraulic lift. Something hydraulic malfunction, something like that. I thought
I don't know. I don't know that it had any mechanical problems other than it just got beat to hell in this storm. It really wasn't a storm. It was just turbulent winds. And what Rusty's describing, I've been on some flights that I don't care to ever repeat again from a standpoint. But I'm not envious. I'm going to tell you this. I am not envious one bit of a person that earns a living in one of those planes all day. Yeah. I'm not. None whatsoever.
And they navigate those stewardesses and stuff, man. They navigate those planes like it's nothing. I mean, you think about it. They'll be out there when the darn thing's taking off, moving that drink cart, and it's like, people at home obviously can't see that I've got my hand up in it, at an angle. But I mean, it's almost like they're climbing a 90-degree angle on takeoff, and they're out there pushing that drink cart. And I mean, sometimes when you see these little stewardesses are little 110-pound girls that look like they just got out of college. And, I always thought that would be a really cool job to have as a young person or as a post-retiree. Like, I know somebody right now who was a long time in administration at Central High School.
Yeah, King.
Yeah, Finley. And Finley works for, his daughter Kendall works with us at LFO. And Finley works for Delta and flies or American, I think, is who he works for. Is it Delta?
Delta, because I ran into him.
And he flies all over the place.
Yeah, I ran into him. And when he said que sera to the Hamilton County school system, he's in training for being on a plane.
Yeah, and they can't.
And Finley has a lot of skills about him from people's side. I wouldn't be surprised by now he's not some kind of a team leader up there. Or something.
Well, I had my uncle. I've one that was a retired pilot from Northwestern Airlines, and he could fly because of being an employee of the company. He still to this day carries a card. Him and my aunt can fly anywhere in the world for like $5. It might have gone up now to 10 or 15, but I mean, they get like this employee thing because of all the hours, I guess, of time that he logged in the air, and they can go anywhere. And I'm like, God, if you gave me that, I wouldn't ever be home. I'd be gone all the time as long as I could afford the motel rooms.
Audra went on a flight one time to see her college roommate. Is when they were still in college. She had gone home for the holidays, and she went up there to see her, I think during the summer or something like that. And she was living in Chicago at the time, and she got on the plane here in Chattanooga, and it was a little prop job in a thunderstorm.
We call those puddle jumpers.
Yeah, this was in a thunderstorm, and she even told me before she got on the plane, she's like, I don't really feel safe getting on that flight. And I'm like, well, do you want to postpone it? And whatever. She's like, no. And she went, and she called me when she touched down, and she's like, never again.
Yeah.
I should have went with my first thoughts. Well, again,
she said I've never seen a rougher flight, been more scared. She said it was.
I would say if I had that deal, Rusty, from a standpoint of just free flights, and I was willing to do that, I think I would chase sporting events. I think you would chase musical events.
Oh, absolutely. I would.
Scott would.
Scott would be at every dadgum amusement park in the known free world.
He'd be chasing roller
He'd be flying that.
Either that or some barbecue joints.
He'd be riding that one in United Arab Emirates that goes like 200 miles an hour.
Ferrari Rosa.
I've long believed, and I have a quote that's hanging in my classroom, and it says something to the effects of, "There's no faster way to fight bigotry and racism than travel." And I firmly believe that. And I really, the problem is there's a lot of people in the world that can't afford to go out there and travel now because, for a family of four to fly, for me and Chrissy and the kids to fly an hour and 5 minutes to Chicago, we're lucky if we can do that for under $1,000. Mm-hmm. And so you can't, and it's absolutely the safest form of travel there is. I mean, when you hear of an accident, it's bad, but do the math. How many plane crashes do you hear about versus how many car crashes you hear about in a given week?
Sure.
I mean, I love it, and I wished everybody out there could experience it. But yeah, if you've never experienced, I think about that one. What was it? I guess 15, 20 years ago. That one that was flying from, I think it might have been flying from Hawaii, when the whole damn top of the plane just came off, like a big old chunk of the cockpit went flying off, and those people, the masks, came. The people were able to still wear the mask, but a whole chunk, when they flew with air hitting them in the face the rest of the way.
I don't remember that.
That's been a while. It might have been 15 or 20 years ago now, but I mean,
I just hate when I hear those things. I hate to hear them because I know I'm 4 or 5 months from getting on a plane again myself. But again, they have when the pilot comes on there and tells you that.
Yeah.
He's not telling you the whole story.
No.
which I've flown enough to know by now. You damn liar! You ain't telling the whole story.
I call it realtor speak. You know how it's you got
to use a little touch up here and there.
Yeah, a little touch up, or it's or spacious. It's rustic. That's a nice way of saying it's old and dilapidated. Oh, it has that worn look. Oh, really? That worn look? Okay.
Been lived in.
Yeah, many wildlife enjoy this area. Oh, so there's rats.
House has a great personality.
Well, guys, obviously we're a sports show, but we're also a fun show for that matter. So, I thought it'd be kind of fun as
we hope we are.
As we're getting into some of this. Here we are. Today's the 21st, so we're basically 4 days away from Christmas. So I thought it would be fun. We like doing our list, and we like talking about what we love the best about this, that, or the other. So I thought it might be fun for us to talk about what are our favorite Christmas movies. Now, there's no criteria here. Serious Christmas movie, funny Christmas movie, whatever. What's the one movie every year? We'll start with that one first. What's the one movie every year that is not the Christmas season for you yet until you see that movie?
Well, and I haven't seen that this year, and I can't believe with the hype that it had about redoing this movie, The Christmas Story, I haven't even caught it. And there's many years it seems like I find it on every other
you can't
channel.
Escape it. Yeah.
But I haven't seen it, so I don't know where it's been, what they're doing. But you know Christmas trees are right around the corner when
you see Ralphie.
When that one, and you did know they were remaking.
Yeah, it is. I've not watched it yet. It is on HBO Max. It is called A Christmas Story.
Okay.
A lot of my kids at school had watched it, and they all loved it. Now I blew their minds. A few days ago, we hit the stretch of the year. We'll probably watch a couple Christmas movies as you're going down the home stretch, and we watched Elf, and it's scene in Santa's workshop.
Yeah.
And Peter Billingsley comes out as is it Ming Ming I think is his name, or Min Min's his name, but it's the guy that played Ralphie. And of course, I have to point that out, because I'm all the kids. I'm like, hey, how many of y'all seen The Christmas Story? And they all raise their hand. I'm like, see that guy right there in the glasses? That's Ralphie. And they're all like, no.
But because I don't care for that movie, I didn't know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think that's a good movie.
Peter Billingsley is one of the best friends of Vince Vaughn, and Jon Favreau, who are the executive producer directors of a crap ton of movies. And Billingsley has been in tons of those movies. He's kind of like Stan Lee in the Marvel universe. He plays like a little bit part. He's one of the friends, or he's a guy, running the booth at the subway station.
So you're telling me in what happens with many of child actors and actresses, that's where their career ended as children.
There's a lot of them.
You're telling me he's continued on in the form of not the star.
Yeah.
He started out as a star.
Now he's behind the camera.
Director, yeah.
They say, like, he was on CBS This Morning. My wife loves that show. She tapes it every day and watches it when she gets home in the evenings. And she showed it to me about a week or so ago. Peter Billingsley was on there, and they do a thing on there. I think it's on Fridays called A Letter to Myself, or a letter from the future, or something like that, where you write a letter back to your younger self. And he wrote a letter to himself as young Peter about to do A Christmas Story. And he told in the letter about how that the producer and the director both befriended him as a young child, and he was learning the whole time. They were showing him all these different things. You know, of course, now at that time the camera equipment was nothing like what it is now, but they were kind of taking him under their wing and showing him how this works and that works and why you do this.
You and I've lived through that.
Yeah, exactly. And it developed.
And Scott too.
We've
all lived through it.
Yeah, it developed his love of wanting to be behind the camera. Well, what's yours, Scott?
I honestly don't watch many Christmas movies.
What do you fast forward to?
They're just not that interesting to me. I do watch Christmas Vacation, which is probably the one. My wife loves Elf. I have never seen The Christmas Story.
What?
Have never seen it.
Doesn't he say things that are
I have
sometimes, yeah.
I have never seen it. I might.
It's just like he ain't seen the Braves in 15 years.
Seriously.
We were talking about it. I saw the Braves 3 times live last year.
Oh, you've changed. Oh.
Well, I didn't root for them a single time, but I was there at the games. I might even watch A Christmas Story this year just to see what all the hype is or is not about.
It's
if
funny.
I have to pick a Christmas movie that I would want to watch every single year, to me, it's not Christmas until Hans Gruber is falling off the top of the Nakatomi building.
Die Hard. Yeah.
It's a Christmas movie. I don't care what anybody says.
I agree.
I say it's a Christmas movie, and I like watching it.
All right, and you two are...
And Trading Places.
You two
Yeah,
are,
I love Trading Places.
Better
Trading Places
at
also takes place on Christmas.
Gauging and rating movies than probably myself. Chevy Chase being in the Christmas, is that the best of the Griswolds?
No. The original's the best.
Yeah, no, I agree with Scott. The very first Vacation is by far the best.
So even though Christmas Vacation is as well thought of,
Christmas Vacation is hilarious.
You don't think it's?
No, I put it number 2.
It's number
2.
2.
Regular Vacation. European Vacation is pretty funny.
It has its
not
parts.
As good. Vegas Vacation is not very good. Oh, there's a couple of funny.
The new Vacation wasn't terrible, but it wasn't.
No, it wasn't that good.
And I think it's because
still the best.
I just think it's because that's a kind of an antiquated brand of comedy that you don't enjoy. You haven't spruced it up in so many years. Just the straight out slapstick. One guy has terrible luck the whole way through, Well,
The Hangover came out and kind of changed that.
It did. It changed that mold.
Because nobody expected anything like that. And I guess they were trying to, Ed Helms magic, but it just didn't.
But where I won't disagree with you, but I think I would disagree with you, and from the standpoint of the popularity of Christmas Vacation and what it means at Christmas time.
Oh, yeah.
I think that it might be the most popular.
It might be the most popular. I don't think it's the best movie, but it might be the most popular because so many families get together and watch it, because I think so many families can relate to it. And not every family has taken a drive across country. I've done it a couple times.
No, but every family has a cousin Eddie.
Everybody has had family at Christmas.
And I've never had the privilege of stopping here, but I learned something in that movie. I'm not going to stop in East St. Louis for any reason. If nothing else came of that movie, I learned a little bit about geography.
I learned something about
God.
I learned something about Christmas Vacation the other day that I didn't know, and it was one of those weird little blurbs that pops up on Facebook once in a while. The weird history. The little old lady that plays Aunt Bethany.
I know what you're going to say.
Was Betty Boop.
Yep. She was the voice.
The little grandma that was, is your house on 5 o'clock? Aunt Bethany was the original Betty Boop. I mean, that was, it's, you like to see.
And of course, I guess everybody knows, Johnny, Galecki ends up,
Johnny Galecki. You got Christina it's Christina Applegate. You get no, Applegate. That's God, what is her name? That's
Jeanette Lewis.
Yeah, Jeanette. Yeah, I mean,
Applegate was in the new Vegas.
That's right, yeah. And then, Margot and Todd, Julia Louis-Dreyfus goes on to Seinfeld fame. There's so many, most people don't even realize that the boss is Brian Doyle Murray. That's Bill Murray's brother, which the funny part about that is Bill Murray and Chevy Chase absolutely despise one another to this very day.
Yeah,
that goes all the way back to Saturday Night Live. Yeah, I've got a book about Saturday Night Live at school. And
they got him to do the one scene together in Caddyshack. which was written during lunch somewhere because they're like, these are the two biggest stars and they're not the same thing.
That's right.
So they let them. There's actually one scene and that was about it.
There's actually two scenes and the other one was cut out. There's actually a scene.
Who helped who get on that movie?
I don't know. The funny thing about Caddyshack is that movie originally was supposed to be the breakout moment for the kids. It was supposed to be, they were supposed to try to bring young comedians in and make the caddies the star of the show, and then they put all those damn A-list comedians in there. You had Rodney, you had Chevy, you had Bill. How do you compare? Ted Knight at the time, people don't realize how dang funny Ted Knight is. That guy was on tons of shows.
Yeah, Mary Tyler
Moore. He was on Three's Company, and then later Three's a Crowd. He was
i.e. the title of the movie, Caddy.
Yeah, that's where that came from. It originally was supposed to be about the caddies.
But definitely played a secondary role.
Oh, absolutely. The best, my favorite story from Caddyshack is Rodney had never done anything. That was the first movie Rodney had ever been in, and he didn't understand that when he went out there and give all his lines, that he wasn't going to be getting that instant feedback that he got on a stand-up stage. And he goes out there and he just absolutely blows it out of the water. And he comes back on the side and he looks to one of the kids, the kid that played D'Annunzio, the caddy, and he goes, "Cool kid, tough crowd." He goes, "I'm dying out there," and he goes, "Rodney, they can't laugh." He goes, "The crew's over here biting their hands to keep from bursting out in laughter."
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, okay. But, piggyback off y'all, I guess I'm like Scott. For me, it is Christmas when I've seen Christmas Vacation. I love Elf. I love A Christmas Story. I've seen it a blue million times. I love there's a lot of secondary Christmas movies that don't get the respect they deserve that I like. I love Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger because there's just 2 or 3 scenes in it that make me laugh. I love Christmas with the Cranks. I like the one, I can't think of the name of it right now, but it's the one with Danny DeVito and Matthew Broderick where they get in a lighting war in their neighborhood.
What was that called?
That one's funny because Kristen Chenoweth plays Danny DeVito's wife. That one's cute. There's a lot of really funny Christmas movies, and then that, of course, that gets you into what are some of the funnier Christmas television shows over the years where a particular one of your favorite shows. What are some of the best Christmas episodes throughout time? There's some really good.
Yeah, there's a bunch of that.
MASH Christmas episode was great. That Happy Days had a good Christmas episode way back when. Friends had a couple of really good Christmas. The Holiday Armadillo is one of the best Christmas episodes of any series. Seinfeld with Festivus.
I always like all the Office Christmas episodes.
There's, and you even like, for those of you that are fans of cartoons and stuff, Lord, all your favorite cartoon series, a lot of them had Christmas episodes. G.I. Joe, He-Man, all those 80s Christmas, those
He-Man, that goes back
to
That goes back to
Star Wars.
Thinking that we cheated him on
first,
on
Deck the Halls.
Deck the Halls. That's okay. Well, and let me say this too. If you have not, those of you out there listening today, if you've not watched the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special yet on Disney Plus, do it. I'm telling you, I laughed till I hurt in that one. Kevin Bacon is phenomenal in that. Yeah. It is absolutely hilarious. But, we're all of an age that we remember, the original Rudolph. The Muppets Christmas special.
Yeah.
Frosty the Snowman. The Charlie Brown Christmas. We all remember watching, to me as a kid, it wasn't Christmas until I saw Charlie Brown Christmas or till I saw Rudolph, till I saw, Frosty the Snowman. All those old school animated specials really made it drove it home that it was Christmas time. And I watched.
And I do think that, 20 years ago, maybe more, the first type of movies we were talking about superseded what you just went to. Mm-hmm. That lost its audience, Rusty. When the other movies that we first started talking about here, those animated cartoons lost its audience.
Well, yeah, because, we became...
They still run it, but...
A lot of that is when we started becoming a little more obsessed with reality television, things like that,
when they run those things, NBC, CBS, ABC, I bet they have poor ratings.
I don't know, man. I think you got a lot of nostalgia there. I think you have a lot of people that still... I mean, and this is definitely showing my age, and I don't know that both you guys will know. Actually, I think Scott will know this one, but I don't know if I think Rob will probably look at me like I've got two heads when I mention this one. But one of my all-time favorite Christmas episodes ever, and my friend Jennifer Blair always posts about it every year on Facebook, and it is Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas. And it is as old school as old school get. Do you remember that? Do you remember it, Scott? It's a Jim Henson animation, and it's about this little otter that steals his mama's wash tub to make a bass for his jug band so that him and his boys can play in this jug band competition. Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas.
Well, if that had been a true false, I don't know which one I would have said, and I'd been wrong probably.
Yeah, but that one has always been one of my...
Still got it right.
That one's always been one of my faves too, but... I'm finally, and it always takes me a little bit to kind of crank into it, but I finally, like y'all are here and can see, but, I've been wrapping some Christmas presents today and kind of getting back into to all of it, and, it's crazy. I mean, we're in this stretch now where me and the kids at school were talking about the other day that, we had Christmas decorations in Walmart before Halloween was even over, and that's October.
Yeah, and Rusty, you being in the school system, and I know I've had conversations with many of high school coaches, and we talk about, and just think about all these state championships just wound up, and then Christmas breaks on. You make it through half the year. But if your football program, your high school football program, Scott, can take you to the end, you get a ton of momentum out of that in your school building.
Oh, Lord, yeah.
And when you fall on hard times early in a football season, I think the school feels that too in other ways, maybe attendance being one of them. Yeah,
this year this year has been the first year in really 3 years that we've had what you would call a normal school year. I mean, we actually have brought back all of the absentee regulations that we had when it came to, kids having to take finals and stuff. The last couple of years, because of COVID and because of the modified schedules that we wound up with here and there.
Out of it.
Yeah, we got away from that. I mean, as long as you were passing your classes, you didn't have to take finals. Well, most of us would have, I think I had, over the last 2.5 years, I probably had 2 kids took final the whole way through. This year's a little bit different. This year we brought back the whole thing that we always had where you're rewarded for good attendance and good grades. So, you could miss up to 3 days and have an A, miss 2 days, have a B, so forth, so on. And so a lot of us, gave final exams over the last couple of days. And it was a little bit different because we just weren't, it's something new now. But you're exactly right. I mean, unless you got a really good next sport program. Like for us, our football team had an early exit this year. We didn't make the playoffs, but we have a really good girls basketball team. We have a really good boys basketball team, and our wrestling team this year has really had a great season.
It's nice when that picks up.
Yeah.
But again, that really good football season can almost carry you through the half.
Absolutely,
it can. Now, not everybody goes to the state finals. I understand.
No,
that, but there's plenty that do.
There are plenty that do,
and the momentum that they have inside. And then they come back and we just got to finish up half of this.
That's right.
And again, we know how hectic the spring is from the standpoint of even keeping up with all the sports that are going on.
Have you looked up a list of all-time Christmas movies, Scotty? Is that what you're over there doing?
No, I'm not.
I thought you might have.
I remember me and Robert Akins having this conversation, better than a decade ago, probably 15 years ago, about how good the school year gets off and running when that football team is having success.
Yeah,
it makes a world of difference.
I've heard numerous.
Well, and it sets that bar.
The same thing.
It sets that bar high early in the school year that every other program wants to attain the same success as the program before it. So if the football team comes out, has a great year, the basketball team wants to piggyback off that, the wrestling team wants to piggyback off that, the baseball team, the golf team, everybody in the school wants to carry that on as far into the season as you can. And I mean, you know, a lot of times if you've got a good group of athletes, you do carry that success through, because a lot of those same kids that play football, play basketball, play baseball.
And no disrespect, you come out and you're 0 for 4.
Yeah.
And
it's hard to
get it going. And the things that take place in the school semester just start taking place earlier.
They do, and it's hard to recapture that whole.
Even if that team turned around and won the next 6,
yeah,
they got it off to
a rough start. No, you're exactly right.
And the school.
Well, we got. Obviously we're in Scott's wheelhouse. We start talking about all this. I know we got Best of Preps tournaments coming up over the next few weeks, or the next couple weeks.
Apparently they have a showcase that actually will start tomorrow. The LFO boys apparently have had their schedule changed a couple times now. They will play Christian Heritage, from what I've been told, tomorrow night at 5:30 at Chattanooga State.
Okay.
And the LFO girls are playing East Hamilton, I think at 7 o'clock on Friday night. And then the whole Best of Preps tournament starts next Wednesday at Chattanooga State. 8 different guys teams, 8 different girls teams. Gordon Lee is in the final day of their Christmas tournament right now. Excuse me. North Murray started a tournament yesterday that goes through Friday. And there's numerous tournaments all over the area right now.
Well, and Scott, this might put you at a disadvantage, so I'm not going to ask you about who you know and who should be and who's supposed to be good in Chattanooga, but I'll certainly let you speak on North Georgia and who's already showed signs of being a tough out. Obviously, the Lakeview girls, right?
Yeah,
they had some lopsided victories. Has anybody played them tough?
Bremen played them to about 12 points at home.
Okay.
Other than that,
they brought their
Murray County. I know has got a good team this year. But of course, they're in a different classification now. And then, of course, in Chattanooga, Bradley Central is still very good. They'll play LFO again coming up here in about a month, like they did last year.
And if I remember, they beat the LFO girls last year,
I
think gave them their first loss.
Yep.
But then
they did, and LFO didn't lose another game until the state quarterfinals. Bradley beat East Hamilton earlier this week, I think, in overtime. So.
And Bradley's and East Hamilton girls have come along.
So that'll be a real good game Friday night with LFO and East Hamilton. Assume that's when they're playing at 7. That's what I've been told. It's at Chattanooga State.
Oh, okay.
That's at Chattanooga State. I was trying to see if I could find the Best of Prep schedule, because I know I have it somewhere on this phone. It's been emailed to me. I'll just
you said 8 boys, 8 girls teams. Are they evenly split with Tennessee, Georgia, or is that not the case?
I think LFO is the only North Georgia team in the field. Is this it? Yes, it is. There we go.
Okay.
This is your Best of Preps tournament schedule. This will be at Chattanooga State next Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the 28th, 29th, and 30th.
Will it be warmer by then?
It's supposed to be.
Okay.
Supposed to dip down for a couple days. Wind chill's supposed to be like -5 to -10 come Friday. Girls bracket. These are the opening games. Wednesday, 10 a.m. LFO at Meigs County, or against Meigs County. All these games are at Chattanooga State. GPS and Signal Mountain. Brainerd versus East Hamilton, and Baylor versus Tyner.
And Brainerd has already played. Is that boys?
Girls.
And Brainerd girls had already played LFO girls. And it wasn't close.
No. I believe it was 68-11.
Yeah. It wasn't close. I don't know what they can do to change things in the second affair.
I'll be honest. I've seen 3 or 4 Tennessee public school girls teams. I wish I had an answer.
Well, you've seen Lakeview
It's
play.
just-
and I saw them
it's
play
just not-
last year some. I
don't know.
What is their general strength? Why are they so good?
They got speed. They got about 3 girls that can shoot the eyeballs
Well,
out
that's
of it.
big. I think
Get
speed's big in
three-pointers.
football. I
And
think
now-
shooting's big in the
And now
basketball.
they've had a couple girls last year that are more involved this year that are big and physical down low.
Because they graduated a couple sisters.
They graduated one girl. One of the there was 2 pairs of sisters last year, and one of them was a point guard last year. She graduated, signed with Bryan College, but her sister is still there, and then the Collins sisters are still there. Now 2 of those are seniors this year, so we'll see. Of course, Kristen Collins will still be there. They'll still be pretty good, but this year. I think they're deeper this year than they were last year.
Okay, and they had a good squad last year.
Yeah, really good squad last year, and have a really good squad this year. I'm not exaggerating when I say they're legitimate state championship contender teams. There's about 5 or 6 teams, I think.
And that's saying a whole lot because we know what takes place in Atlanta Metro in basketball.
If they're shooting the ball and they avoid foul trouble with their main 3, they're good enough to play with about anybody in their classification. So we'll see what happens. Boys best of prep schedule. This will be the afternoon evening session because the 4 girls games will be played first, and then it'll be the Baylor boys versus Howard, Tyner versus Signal Mountain,
Ram.
McCallie versus LFO, and Brainerd versus East Hamilton. McCallie LFO is a rematch of the Chattanooga Christian Thanksgiving tournament there at the start of the season.
And how'd that go?
Not well for the red and white. I want to say it was like 70-30 something.
McCallie.
Yeah. It wasn't. LFO did not play very well that day. It was their 3rd game in 3 days, and I think. And it probably was for McCallie, too. I'm not sure.
Now, Lakeview had a good boys club last year. Did they graduate much off of that team?
They graduated some of that team.
did.
Most of their players came back, except for Jamichael Davis, who
That's
transferred down to McEachern down in Atlanta.
Which is their D1 prospect.
And still a very good, very formidable team. I know Heritage beat them the other night in a pretty good game. They came back and beat Ringo the other day. They were, I think, down 5 going in the 4th quarter. Came back and won that one. They're undefeated in Region 6-3A. And Lafayette. Now Lafayette did graduate, not quantity. They didn't graduate a ton, but quality. When you lost your point guard, your shooting guard, and your power forward,
that
3,
could be
4,
the other
5
2
that signed Division 1. Yes,
could play the other 2 spots. And he was the most.
Aiden Hadaway.
And I didn't see a lot of basketball like you did, but he was very unique in his game for me here because most kids I see with his height can't handle the ball, and he could do that very well.
He was a guard in middle school, and he could handle the ball back then. He went from 5'8" to 6'8", in a span of about 3 or 4 years. So yeah, he's still, and I think he's averaging 6 or 7 points a game for Ohio right now, the Bobcats. So that'll be interesting. They played earlier this year. Lafayette and LFO did. Lafayette, I think, was down 12 at one point, came back, had a chance to tie it or win it late, couldn't get a shot to fall, ended up losing by 2. So they'll play again coming up in, I think, late January or early part of February, something like that. Those 2 teams were really good. Ringo played and beat Heritage the other night and looked really good doing it.
So Ringo beat Heritage. Heritage beat Lakeview. Then Lakeview beat Ringo.
Yes.
So if they played in that trio again.
And they've already played, I think, 2 or 3 times each. Ringo put it all together that night. They have been so close because their record's like 3-8 or 4-8 or something like that. And about 4 of those losses have been by about 2 points. They've been right there and just lost the lead late or whatever. But Ringo has built something over the last 2 or 3 years, and of course last year the Ringo boys made that incredible Cinderella run. They were the 9th seed in the region tournament out of 9 teams, won the play-in game, won 3 or 4 more to make the semifinals, and actually made it into the state tournament as the number 4 seed, went on the road and knocked off a number 1 seed. And I think that gave them a lot of momentum coming back. They graduated a kid that was 6'7" also, but they've been getting it done. With
kind of found their game late in last year, and maybe it's carried over.
Yeah. They've got 3 or 4 really good shooters on that team, and if they're hitting, like I said, they can play with a bunch of people too. That whole region, 6-3A, the Ringo Ridgeland boys have played better here the last couple of weeks. They're starting to find something. They got a lot of balance on offense. Gordon Lee has played a lot of teams tough. I know their record in region isn't that good right now, but they played LFO. It was a 2-point game going in the 4th quarter. And LFO went on a little run and got some breathing room, and I think won by 10. Daresville plays people tough. Cahula Creek has a tendency to play people tough. Like I said, that region on the boys' side is probably as balanced as you can possibly get. And Lafayette's still got some players too, don't get me wrong. They just don't have anybody, that's, another Aiden Hadaway out there. But, they played Dalton last night. I know they ended up losing by 13. They lost by 4 to Dalton earlier this year, and I think that's 2 of their 3 losses this year have come to a Dalton team that's very much improved in 5A.
This is the time of year, Scott, we typically start to see the changing of the guards of coaches. Recently, Cahula Creek, he steps down. Yeah. Catching you off guard there, by any way?
A little bit. Because
they'd made improvements.
And I don't, the story's up on our site, if you want to scroll down and find it, just some of the quotes I thought were interesting as to, what he was able to do or not do, and but he said he wasn't, he's not done coaching. So maybe
they're somewhere else.
I don't know.
Well, and that school has had some success in some sports, but that sport had not turned the corner till lately, and it looked like it was making progress. Last year,
not this past season, year before, 2021, they had a team that I think was like 4-3 at one point, and ended up 4-6, missed the playoffs, but you could tell they were starting to get a little momentum. And this year they come in and they finish. I think they end up finishing third in the region, or was it 4th?
Well, it
was third.
It reminded me a little bit,
and that's been their best record by far.
Well, and they've had some baseball success.
Oh, they've had baseball success, basketball, soccer won a state title.
Cahula Creek.
And they got good facilities.
Lots of stuff. Yeah.
Got pretty campus. And I'll tell you who it reminded me of, and Coach Drew Akins is doing a good job at turning that formula around up there. They reminded me of Walker Valley, where every sport at Walker Valley had success, except for football. And when I say success, I mean anything sustained past a year. Now, Drew's come in there, and he knew what he took over, and he's working hard to create a cultural change up there, and he's getting there. And they had good coaches at Walker Valley prior to Drew, and one might have a good year, and then they fall on hard times for the next 4 or 5. But that's what Cahula Creek kind of reminded me, that they were battling that football. When are we going to get over the hump?
And I think that's a perfect comparison, because Walker Valley has been kind of the little brother to Cleveland and Bradley up there.
Sure they have.
And Cahula Creek, same way with Northwest Whitfield. It's 5 miles apart, and it was basically built, to kind of relieve some.
And I think a lot of people thought in the beginning that they would rob away from Northwest, but I don't think that's taking place at all.
No, I mean, they finally beat them year before last for the first time, and almost beat them again this year. Northwest ended up winning that ball game, but yeah, it just hadn't happened. Like I said, the first 10 years of that program, they never won more than 2 games.
Question: Is that
and there is a good person on that staff right now that I would not be surprised if he ends up.
Is that job more appealing today than it was 10, 12 years ago when it was brand new?
I don't see how that...
has it had 10 or 12 years of not doing well that it made itself unappealing?
I don't see how that job's not appealing. I mean, you've got athletes in that school as obvious.
They hadn't been football players.
Well, but it's the same in every school. 9 times out of 10, when you got programs that have good football and everything else as well, it's because coaches get out there and comb the hallways and convince those athletes to play.
It does take some
I have that conversation with our football coaches all the time, that because they'll say, God, you walk down this hallway one day, I mean, if we could get some of these kids that don't want to play, like if we get some of these boys out, I mean, we got boys in that school that are the size of a refrigerator, don't want to play offensive line, and you're thinking, all right, I mean,
but you got to want to play.
You got to want to play,
okay? Because there's a summer out there, Scott, and you got to want to play because you want to endure that.
I think it might be a little more appealing now, just because of what Wilson did for 3 years. He came in there and he kind of showed that, hey, if we get 3, 4, 5, 6 players,
and he has made improvement.
Here's what we can do with that. Now, if we can get more than that.
I think it was,
and they're like I said, they're in a region that isn't that. There's no state championship contenders in that region.
No, and it's not where there's a school or two that is that much heavily more athletic than the other.
And like you said, we come in there, or they've had a group of 4-year starters, Kinnaman at quarterback, and of course Locklear, who graduated, but Manny Dominguez and Douglas and a few other guys.
That school kind of sits out in the country, doesn't it?
Yeah, but they had like a quarterback, a running back, a receiver, a linebacker, a defensive lineman, and a cornerback, and they were able to like put people in around them, and really had a pretty good.
I can
season.
only imagine that the residential zoning for that school is pretty rural as well.
Yeah, unless there's some subdivisions I'm not aware of down there, and there might be because I haven't driven all those back roads, but. There's not a whole lot that's been built around Cahula Creek. I mean, you turn off, if you've ever been to Prater's Mill, you turn
Sadly,
right
yes.
there on Highway 2, and you turn at the Dollar General, and you go down a few miles past the intersection, and you turn off Old Crow Road. And
I shouldn't have said that because they might have been thinking about wanting to be one of our sponsors. And if you are, I take that back.
There is some nicer houses that are right directly across from the school, or right as you're approaching the school entrance, right there.
One of the prettiest.
I've seen some signs, but I don't know just any.
Well, again. So you feel like, and the question was, is the job more or less appealing now than it was in the beginning? Because in the beginning, most new schools can have an appeal, but at the same time, most experienced coaches know they don't have their kids in there yet.
I think everybody thought at the beginning, hey, it's a brand new school, all these facilities, and it might be.
But those coaches went 0-10, 1-9, 2-8,
and they played. I think they played a JV schedule for a couple of years, if I'm not mistaken, or they might have jumped in just like Heritage did.
Mistake.
Yeah, I think looking back for Heritage, it was probably a mistake. But at the same time, I mean, how else are you going to learn? I mean, it's great if you go 8-2.
I'll tell you exactly. And Bill Price created the perfect storm up there, but he went up there with brand new kids, and they played JV for 2 years. On Friday nights, as it was their Friday night, and you
got him conditioned.
You brought over whatever came up there would come up there, okay, and he would win and then. Mm-hmm. So when they transitioned into varsity play, they were still winning. Those kids didn't know anything but winning.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing about it is, like you said, I mean, they played their JV games on Friday night. So when you played your JV games on Friday night, you were used to that atmosphere already.
The second year into varsity play, they won a state championship.
And those kids, by the time they got to varsity, weren't 14 and they were 16.
And that was Heritage's situation right out of the gate.
It didn't hurt that you had an SEC caliber quarterback.
Well, he had back. Here's what he had. He actually had back-to-back all-state quarterbacks.
Yeah,
and that's hard to.
That's hard to do.
Heritage had, I want to say, 33 seniors that fourth year. They went 7-3, missed the playoffs by by about a game.
The only older kids that went over there, Scott, is the ones that weren't going to play for Ringo or Lakeview. And they darted over there.
You weren't getting starters.
So Coach James wasn't dealing with anything but those 40 freshmen, and they were being thrown to the wolves.
Yeah,
I know a lot of funny stories about those first few weeks of him being over there, and I just.
Again, it didn't have to be that way.
It did not. I mean, it's always going to be the 6 and 1/2 a dozen the other. I mean, the thing about that is a new school pops up, and it's can you get kids to go with you? Because do you have kids that want to go experience something new, try to help be on the ground floor of building something, or you have kids that want to stay and finish out what they started where they're at? For me, if I'm in that situation, I want to finish where I started. If I had been at LFO or Ringgold when Heritage came about and I was a junior or senior, there is no way in hell I was going to leave either one of those schools because that's where my loyalty lies.
And let me say this about that. I'm glad you bring this up, and it's nothing I haven't said to anybody that ever asked me. Ringo showed loyalty, and Lakeview did not show loyalty.
Right.
They were in a hurry, in a mass exodus, to get over there and walk those hallways, and it's why Lakeview took it on the chin.
Well, and
Ringo didn't have that.
And the bigger reason that Lakeview took it on the chin was that when the zoning and everything hit the way it did,
absolutely.
It was the Heritage zoning was way more into Lakeview's territory than it was into Ringgold's territory. And Ringgold, the thing about Ringgold is really, I mean, realistically, there's a scenario where in 3 to 5 more years, Ringgold could be massive. Because all you have to do is drive down around Windstone and Cherokee Valley Road and some of those areas down there.
There's a lot of growth left to
and
be
there's
there.
But there's a ton of new subdivisions popping up everywhere.
Well, there's a lot of land
just like there's a whole lot of new subdivisions popping up down here around Denmore and all the areas where that will eventually be zoned.
We can't say that about Lakeview.
Well, I mean,
until we rezone it.
Our zone is locked. I mean, we are in an existing city that is where it is. There's not a lot of room for growth around here because there's just not any land left. I mean, we're up on the high side of the county. We are where we've always been. Unless we start tearing down some old Walmarts and building subdivisions or something like that, we are where we are. I mean, our zone is the old guard, so to speak.
The second generation, maybe even stretching it to third generation Rigolians that stayed loyal to that. I can even start throwing names out like Lances and Crownovers, Crosses, and Hackett's. They stayed true to Ringo, and Lakeview didn't show any loyalty. They ran off over there like they was Disney World.
Well, you had, I mean, I'm trying to think, that was, 2007? So, I mean...
7, 8, something like that.
Yeah, so you weren't coming off, I mean, the John Allen era was over. That lasted, 2000 through 2004? So, you had gone through the 2 Mark Davis years. So that's 05, 06.
1 in 19.
So you're coming off of a 1 in 19 program. That's not a hard. I mean, I didn't work there then. I mean, I'm an alumni, but I mean that's not a hard sell.
And then of course Todd took it, and I even remember some comical conversations I had with Todd about some of the things that took place over there at Lakeview, in a way that's not. If you're part of Lakeview and you're part of the staff, and you're part of the coaching staff, and even the faculty, you can't like it. You can't like what was taking place, and that did take place in that respect. But then when Todd had one of the last really good groups of seniors, I think.
He had that group with Cody and LeGreg.
That group that was pretty good. And then
that team beat Cartersville in the region playoffs.
Yep.
That's right.
Well, and I mean, you look at the coaching staff that he put together those first couple of years that Wyndham was at Lakeview. I mean, you're talking about you had him, you had Charlie Wiggins, you had Bo Campbell. You had, I think, Jason Campbell was on that staff as well. Eventually, you added who is it? I'm thinking of.
Well, Houston White was.
Was on that staff. I mean, you had a lot of future head coaches in the Chattanooga, North Georgia area.
I don't think Charlie
on that
had
staff.
There yet.
Charlie got there a couple years later because he was at. Yeah, Charlie was there, and he was there. He was still at Gordon Lee at that time. But I mean. It is what it is. I mean, you were never going to. We watched, because of this time in history, we had an opportunity to sit and watch what it was probably like, or what it would have been like, if by some chance some crazy person in Marion County decided that it was a good idea to build one big giant school and put them all in there.
Well, let me say that. They had that argument a couple years ago, and I said, well, they'll never vote that in.
Nope.
And if they do, there'll be a zero attendance.
Yep.
Because nobody will show up.
But here's the difference. The difference is, you go over there into that county, take Whitwell out of the conversation.
Well, they're not showing up either.
But Marion County and South Pittsburgh have never been anything but successful in high school football.
And Whitwell struggles.
Ringgold and Lakeview, at the time when Heritage came along, really had been anything but successful in football.
They weren't winning state championships in the major sports, except for wrestling and maybe softball.
Lakeview won. How many football region titles they won? 1? 2004? That's it, right? 2.
No, yeah, 1. No,
the year before they did not win.
They tied for it. That year before was the year it was a 3-way tie.
No, that year before.
So technically 2, I guess, but
that year before it finished out Ringo 4, Lakeview 3.
That's right.
I can pull it. But my point is, they haven't won many region titles.
Dalton got left out of it. I think Rome won it that year.
Yeah, that's right. Rome won it.
How many region titles has Ringo won?
Football?
Since 1934, how many region titles has Ringo won?
I don't think. I'm gonna say 0.
0.
That's right.
Yeah,
they've never won a region title in football.
Well,
so
we're talking about one region title between the two.
We talked about. I remember having the same conversation with Stump on the radio show on AM.
I do too.
It was like, do you stay where you're at and finish it off, or do you go over there and start a new tradition right now? Because Ringgold Middle School had opened a couple years before that, and we're already having success at the middle school level. So do you go over there and you start new traditions and start winning now, or do you finish up?
This is what they could have done, because they did do. The splosh money was out there and was coming in a nice amount. You were going to enhance both schools. You've done that. You enhanced Ringo and you enhanced Lakeview, and you got less kids in it than you used to have.
Yeah.
Because we had to have the third school. No, we didn't have to have the third school.
Well, now, but the funny thing now, though, is with the gift of time, now you look back on it and you realize that if you don't have Heritage right now, Lakeview and Ringgold are at least 4A and potentially 5A, and neither of them are going to compete above that level in any sport.
Well, and of any of the three schools, none of them want to drive further than 45 minutes south of here.
Well, the drive is not even the drive's bad enough, but I mean,
45 minutes.
It always reminds me of that old line that Coach Jones said one time. I think when they went from 3A down to 2A, and Coach Jones said something to the effects of, "Well, we're still going to get our butts kicked. We're just going to have to drive a little further to do it."
He had such good ways with words.
But I mean, that's the thing is, this success is inevitable if those three schools can stay around the same region level, around the same enrollment levels that they are. The problem for all three schools in Catoosa County eventually is going to be that this is an exploding area. When you talk to people from Hamilton County that complain about the school systems and stuff, one of the main things they always say is, when I had the chance 2 years ago, I should have moved to North Georgia. Well, that sentiment is starting to catch on, and you have a lot of people that live in North Georgia and work in the Chattanooga-Hamilton County area. And the enrollment just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We're the biggest right now we've been in a few years. I mean, we're a little over 1,000, I think, is our enrollment right now. Yeah. Maybe just a little bit less.
I mean, last time I saw the numbers, and I think Ringo was in maybe 100 kids better than y'all, and then
Heritage is down just a little bit. They're actually approaching. I think last I'd read something. I think they were approaching the levels of potentially being able to come back to 3A before it's all said and done. But
they've won 4.
Ringgold has won 4.
No, Lakeview
has won 4.
Has won 4 region titles. 2002 and 2004, they both won region titles. Before that, you have to go back to Wade's Warriors, 57-58, back when they were Lakeview.
Okay, 2002 would make
that's John's Woodard. Third year. Woodard's senior year. No, Woodard's junior year.
And did they tie for somebody? They either tied with Dalton or Rome?
That year, they lost 26-3 to Dalton. Was their only regular season loss. That was the year they played South Forsyth. They won 10 games, had to play them at Findlay in the playoffs. They lost to McNair. Yeah. Rome and LFO tied technically at 7-1 or 7-1 in the region. Hiram was also 7-1 in the region that year, but they lost out on a tiebreaker. But Rome got the number 1 seed overall. But for whatever reason, they're showing this as a co-champions. Because they beat Rome.
And guys, I still remember.
And that next year was the 3-way tie for third.
Those 2 or 3 years for Coach Allen and the Warriors up there, that really was a good group. And I say this sincerely, a group that's never showed back up since.
The next year they lost to Rome. They also lost to Ringgold.
Yeah.
And they lost the first round of the playoffs. Rome ended up going 7-1. Lakeview, there was a 4-way tie, technically for second. Paulding County, Ringo, LFO, and Dalton. And Lakeview got in as the 4 seed. Dalton was actually the odd team out that year. Now, that next year, of course, 2004 was the year they went undefeated. And
they were full of a lot of seniors that year.
That's the year they got beat by, was it Salem?
Salem.
Yeah. They made it to the
second round of
the playoffs.
And let me say this. They were good enough. I know they didn't win that game, but they were good enough to go on. And I think at least be in the final.
I think they would have been. I think if they'd have won that game, they would have made it to the Dome.
They could very
because
well
didn't Salem finish state runner up that year
or won it?
I think Salem finished state runner up.
They may have won it.
No,
the previous year when they played Marist was when Marist went all the way.
And we haven't made this announcement, but it was made finally. GHSA and the state championships are going to be played in
Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
And you know that
on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. By the way.
Well, now you're bringing more bad news to the club.
Well, Tuesday, Wednesday,
and
Thursday.
Like I told some people, it's like, hey, do you want to be in the Dome outside of those elements? Then you got.
Well, and particularly, we watched those games, and I think it was Friday night's affair. Most of those games were played in a pouring down rain, and again, I don't want that time of year if it can be helped. I don't want that time of year's weather to have some form of dictation or some form of input towards the outcome of that ball game. And I don't know that it did. I don't know that it didn't. But, when you're playing in pouring down torrential rain that they played in Friday nights, it had to cause some miscues.
Actually, Rusty, that Salem team that year went 13-1.
And won it.
No, they didn't win it.
They finished runner-up, right?
They finished in the state semifinals.
Semifinals.
If Lakeview had have won, they would have had to play Griffin in the next round, which Salem beat Griffin 34-20. Of course, the LFO game was 21-17. And then Salem ended up losing in the Georgia Dome to Statesboro. 17-0.
Yeah, and that game, if they'd have got by it, I honestly think they were good enough to be in the Final Four.
Because I'm pretty sure that might have been the year. Yeah, they lost to Warner Robins.
Oh, okay.
I do remember that.
Well, guys, that's going to do it for us. We're at a fast and furious hour here. Got to get started early today.
2001 was the year Statesboro beat.
We appreciate you folks coming on and being with us. We want to wish you guys all out there a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We will not have a show next week. Obviously, we'll take that 1 week off as we start into the new year. But we appreciate you guys for staying loyal with us and being with us the whole year and all these years that we've been doing this. We hope that we'll just get bigger and better as time goes on. So for Scott, for Rob, and for all the folks out there in Scenic City Sports Nation, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we will see you guys in the future.